Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about algebraic proof. This corresponds to Chapter 2, Section 6. We're going to be going through some basic algebra steps and just justifying each step, which we do anyways in our head, like we add to both sides. That's the addition property. So the basic properties that you've learned in pre-algebra or algebra 1 or intermediate algebra, whatever you want to call it, or something like the distributive properties. Like if you're multiplying something times a parenthesis set of values of two different terms inside, you can actually do this little like distribute to here. So it's kind of like these swoop things. You can multiply both of those. So it's like a times b and a times c. And vice versa, if you have it kind of flipped around or commuted around, commutative property here, you can actually back distribute per se. You can say a or b times a, and then c times a as well. So you can kind of do those. And we usually put whatever is first or on the left first. So it'd be b times a and c times a. And just a quick example of that you usually see is like 3 times x plus 2. And usually you can rearrange it. So if the 3 was on the other side, you can always put it on the left side. That's called commutative property of multiplication. So we can just do our little rainbow technique. So 3 times x, which will give us 3x. 3x without any spaces is in fact multiplication. And then we're going to do 3 times 2, which is 6. Now, it is a positive 6, so we have to put a positive here. So if it was a negative 6, you put a negative 6. So it's 3x plus 6, because 3 times positive 2 is positive 6. So that would be my distributive property here. So that's just applying that as a quick example over there. Okay, so a few other key ones. I'm not going to give an example for all of these. Is just addition property of equality. We're adding this property of equality in because it's just saying we're going to be working with equations and then doing stuff to both sides. So if I have two equal things, I could add a number to both sides. If I have equal things, I could subtract the same number to both sides. If I have this, again, we're starting with a equals b, so we're starting with things that are all equal to each other, and then I'm either adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing to both sides. One thing about division is we cannot divide by 0, so c, or whatever your constant is not going to ever be 0, because otherwise that would be something of a no-no or undefined in math. So all we're going to be doing is kind of walking through an equation that we've been already given to us. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see everything. So we're given this equation, w divided by 4 plus 8 is equal to negative 2. It's already pre-solved. It's solved and we get w is negative 40. We're just giving it one of the reasons for it. So the very first thing is noting that this is actually going to be given to us. So in most, always, every case, we're going to always start with what is given to us, because we're going to start from there and work our way through a process. Now, we're going to ask ourselves, what changes from here to here? So how do I get from this first step to that second step? Notice that I'm going to highlight this w divided by 4. We still have this plus 8 and this negative 2 and this equal sign. So that is all of the same stuff from up here. What did change is this negative 8 and negative 8 on both sides. So we are in fact subtracting 8 to both sides here. So that subtraction is just a subtraction, and then it's going to be property of equality. So you can write the whole thing out, property of equality. Why do we write that? Is because we, again, have this equal sign and we're doing it to both sides. Now we're just going to use POE, just property of equality, after this. So now if we look from this step to this step, well, that negative 8, positive 8, they disappear. There's no more positive or negative 8. So how does this get from here all the way to here, or from here to here? Well, that's just simplifying. So we just simplified those things, because like, well, a negative 8 and positive 8 is nothing, so there's nothing left, and it's just a w divided by 4. Negative 2 minus 8 is just negative 10, so we just simplified those numbers. Now, again, just highlighting, we have w divided by 4 and negative 10 equals, so again, we still have that right there. the difference, what's being added to this, let's do a different color. So we're noticing that we have this times 4 to both sides, which timesing is just multiplication property of equality. So it's multiplication. I think that's how I spell it. Property of equality. So that would be how this has right here. So one last thing is, well, now we go from here to just there. Well, we're dividing by 4 and timesing by 4, which those simplify to just nothing. -4 times 10 is -40. So this again is just to simplify, or we're simplified this, or these numbers here. So let's walk through another example together, and then I would like you to try one. So this is example 2 on the back page, page 14. Let me show it to you. So it's page 14 of our note packet. I'm going to move it up here and then start highlighting. So first off, we are given this. So that's our first step here. So we're being given this. Now, how do I get from here to the next step? Well, notice that what we did is, what changes, we went the here to here, we multiplied in, or we distributed to both. So it's like 7 times negative y, or sorry, -7 times y, and -7 times -4, which gives us that distribution property. So distribution. And that is not a property of equality. Distribution can be applied with expressions, not just equations. So now how do I get to the next step here? So if you notice, we have this. We can look at that. We have -7y plus 28, and we have 49 in the equal sign here. What is changing is that -28 to both sides. So that is what's changing. So we can just write that down as subtraction, because we're subtracting 28, so subtraction. And then property of equality. Again, it's a property of equality because we have that equal sign and we're doing it to both sides. We have to balance the left side with the right side. So if you have $50 and someone else has $50 and you take away $28 from both of you, you still both have the same amount of money, which is what equal means. So let's walk through that again, or the next step here. So notice how we have positive 28 and negative 28. We get rid of those, and then we combine those to get just a 21, which is just, again, we simplified. So it's looking at how do I get to that next step. Now again, I like to highlight, so we have -7y, we have -7y, we have equals 21, equals 21. What is different? Well, what is different here is we have this -7 underneath. Well, if you remember that, underneath that fraction just means division. So we're dividing by -7 to both sides. So it's the division. And then property of equality. And that's what we're doing here. So again, how did it change from here? So literally I highlighted the same stuff above here, and then, oh, I noticed that the -7's now there. Do you have to highlight it this way? No, but it's kind of a helpful guide. And then the very last thing is, well, think about -7 divided by -7 and 21 divided by -7. Those just simplify again. So we're going to have a lot of simplified in these. Now, granted, we're in geometry and in Algebra 2 next year. A lot of times you don't have to write those steps, but for our sake, we're going to continue to write those, just to show that we know those steps. So now I would like you to take your time and try to walk through this, check your understanding on your own. I will have the answers put in there shortly, so please try it, pause it, and I'll have some answers. So I hope you have the first thing was given. That should be obvious. I think on Alex, it's very nice. It already gives that to you, even though you should obviously know that. Then again, we times to both sides by 6, so we multiplied. We've just simplified this to -12. 6 and divided by 6 and times 6 cancel out, so then it's just left with the y minus 18, which is called simplifying. Notice we added 18 to both sides, and then we just simplified it to right here. So -12 plus 18, 6, and then -18 and positive 18 is just nothing, so we're just left with that y.